Some companies are aware of this, and that's why they get so much support. Other companies, not so much, and that's why they're going to slowly dry out. And again, it's a call to action. You need to be willing to get out there and put more time in with the people, because at the end of the day, they're going to be your customers. But if you want to get new fire into the gaming industry, these are the things you got to do. And if you need proof, I mean, it's the easiest example. Look at last year's election campaign. This is the time now. They've got, just under 2 years.
Everyone, welcome back to the reunion. I'm joined here with Ash, and we're both AJs here, but I'm also AJ here, so welcome back. We're here to discuss a couple more topics on kind of the current events for the gaming industry as a whole, and some Final Fantasy news. So let's just get right into it. Kind of want to talk about last time we left off on the release of the PC version of Final Fantasy VII. So for everyone's been watching and viewing, kind of monitoring the space. And it seems to, from my kind of feed and everything that I've seen online, the release has been quite a success, and the community's kind of embraced it as a whole, and it's created some additional buzz around Final Fantasy VII and kind of brought it back into the limelight. Not that it needed any help, but coming off the awards, I think it just kind of kept up that momentum. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on it, Ash, and what you have seen on your spectrum of media space, and how's the PC
I've seen some mods
release done? Oh, yeah.
That's what I've got to start with.
Yeah.
And they're not crude, but I saw a mod yesterday that had me dying. It was, do you know when they first arrive at the Golden Saucer in Rebirth?
Yeah. The dance scene, right?
Yeah, but this time it's Sephiroth, Zack leading Cloud, and Cloud's leading Sephiroth by the hand. And at the end when they have the dance off, and oh my god, what's his name? Dio.
Yeah.
When he rips off the gown and then he flexes, instead of like a random person in the audience fainting, it's Zack fainting.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
So good.
Going off that, I saw some mods as well with the Loveless play.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, and it's Zack who's the protagonist, and Cloud is the as the princess Rosa. So I mean,
it's so good.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like with mods and PC, obviously it was a huge concern for some of the developers and how wild people would get with the mods. But it does add another layer of enjoyment to the game where people can kind of tailor their experience. So going off that, I think my top 3 mods at the moment that I saw were like the bigger party members. Like you're allowed to, like your party members were more active. So even the back 4 that weren't like your active party members were engaged in the fight. So you're like essentially a party of 7 just roaming around the plains of Midgar, which was insane. So
no way.
Yeah.
And
so
do they when there's a battle, do they engage in the battle as well, the entire party, where it does actual damage, or no?
I think so. The mod upscales the AI to be more aggressive, so they would still do their normal damage. Like if the back row, like the non-active party members, would do their kind of minimal damage, but they would just do it more frequently. So and I think they were more present, because you always kind of saw them in the background if you turned the camera. But they would act like, if it was Yuffie would just get in there if she wasn't in your party for any reason. So but yeah, so that was a pretty cool mod. And there was a lot of like the free camera stuff that people are doing, where they're looking into scenes from different angles has been really cool, I think. Like obviously the famous scene where Sephiroth comes down, people are capturing that from different angles to be like, did he actually get her, or what's going on here? So it adds on to the theory crafting a little bit. So
I saw something about that before the release of Rebirth, where some of the team members were saying people will never truly know what happened in that moment. And I don't know if they said that intentionally as if it's done by design, but they again, it was a translation, but it was alluding to that we'll never fully understand what happened in that scene. Which, by God, I mean, because I was confused when I saw that scene. I thought
I think everyone was,
blocked
yeah.
it, and then even though he blocked the attack, she was still laying there dead. But that would be cool, because I imagine there's some really great angles, especially if you're, watching it from just Sephiroth coming straight down the hallway, or even over the back of him coming. It's just so many great angles with that.
Yeah.
Maybe just makes the scene a bit more enjoyable, because it's the confusion that got me with that scene. I was like, hold on, what the hell?
Yeah.
I thought that was... And also I was expecting it to be different because, it's the remake, it's the rebirth, so I was somewhat anticipating a different outcome from the original Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
I was expecting, okay, this time around they're going to put a twist on it, and Cloud's going to, make sure, but obviously Cloud doesn't know the previous reality, or parallel reality, whatever it may or may not be. That really, I thought that was good though. I thought that was a good way to throw people off, because I think the majority were expecting Aerith to survive this time, but they still went the other way with it, albeit the original way, but still threw people off all the same. It was a twist.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're wrong in believing that, or like that you were wrong to hope that, because the developers are actually controlling the narrative quite well in this game, where they, with the whole whispers and how we defeated the whispers, so it seemed like we had like free will, or like the story was going to play out differently. They definitely inceptioned that hope into people, and they kind of fed off that kind of hope that the people had, and then for Rebirth to end the way it did, I think the confusion that comes around that scene is what a lot of critique that where a lot of people's critiques come from sometimes. It's because they were obviously expecting a result of either Aerith living or just something else entirely happening, but instead they were met with confusion to be like, what's actually really happening in this scene? I think that's obviously
that could
their
be
intention.
tied up in the third part and the final chapter. I think that's probably going to be their intention. I could be wrong, but just from an element of storytelling, if you look at it that way,
they're building up.
It's almost like they're going to make most of it make sense by the time part 3 comes around, because it still left you with questions, like with Cloud with the black materia at the end, and he then infused it into his weapon, and you think, I thought he was sort of free of Sephiroth's clutches and mind games, but apparently not. And then he's obviously seeing what he saw in the sky in that reality with Aerith after she had, or during her death, but the rest of the gang aren't seeing that. And so, you kind of wonder, well, at least for me, I'm kind of left wondering, is Cloud now able to see between worlds? Is that a thing? And the rest are yet to catch up? Or is it Aerith's influence, because, she's obviously still with him in spirit, so to speak? It's a lot to be, but this is the whole point of it. There's a lot left to be discovered and to be answered, but I'm pretty confident that they will get round to... I mean, the story was already confirmed by the end of last year, correct? So, I'm sure that they've already had those loose ends ready at the beginning of this whole production from Remake and how they want to tie it up. So I've got confidence in it. I have.
Yeah, I think from when we met Hamaguchi-san, he said that most of the development on the third part story was complete. For the most part, they knew exactly where they wanted to go and where it wanted to finish. It was just development-wise, it was just everything else catching up. So,
and it seems the team's been very proactive with the patches and the updates on the PC release. I've noticed Hamaguchi-san's been posting quite frequently on Twitter X with the updates. So it seems to be moving pretty fast with any fixes that need to be done. Obviously, it's a PC port, so there's definitely going to be bugs and whatnot. And I don't really see much backlash from the PC community, believe it or not.
Yes. Did you have any more memorable mods that you had have seen?
Honestly, that was mostly... I was impressed with the being able to play through as Zack and
That's gonna be my
Sephiroth.
next one. So
I thought that was pretty cool, because I actually did enjoy playing as Sephiroth at the beginning of Rebirth. I thought that was really, really good. I do, though, prefer Cloud's just his combat dynamics, but that's because I mostly go to the brawler style in that game anyway. And I say brawler, it depends. If I know it's, a very casual enemy, then I don't worry too much about parrying and dodging. I just get in there, hack slash dodge, hack slash dodge. If it's more boss fights, I'm very much more conservative. I plan the fight out. I'll cast haste very quickly, then followed by regen, and I get stuck in. But
solid territory.
Oh yeah, dude. I can't. I've never lost a boss battle on Remake or Rebirth, never. And when I see people on YouTube comments saying like they lost to Rufus in Remake, I was like, how? It's not hard. Like you can, if you know how to parry with good timing, then you'll definitely do it so easy. But if you don't, keep your distance at the start, get haste, cast as fast as you can, followed by regen, take out Darkstar, and then just get stuck in there.
Yeah. You heard it here, guys. If you need help, Ash is willing to coach you through some of those harder fights in Remake and Rebirth.
There was somewhere I struggled, but I refused to lose. That's the thing.
Still think, sorry, keep going.
The Mind Flayer, was it, in Rebirth? He was tough because my initial fighting style isn't good for him because, like I said, I like to keep a distance, assess their sequence of moves, get my, spells cast in advance, and then get stuck in. But you can't do that with the Mind Flayer.
He was immune to magic, wasn't he? Or was he had some kind of resistance to magic?
He had a lot of resistances. And there was also, I think, a cooling down period where you had to wait to get your attacks in, but then at the same time, if he was allowed to cast one of his attacks,
it was a one-hit kill, wasn't it?
Yeah, instant death. So it's the same with Odin. Odin was again that's my play style. So I want to keep a distance at the beginning, get everyone geared up, ready to go. But you can't do that with Odin because if you don't attack, then apparently he gets disappointed in you, and that's when he does that call or rally, where he's going to just unleash a big attack. And then if you get hit too many times by him, he also gets disappointed, unleashes another big attack.
Yeah.
So, I really had to... Oh, God, it was tough. So I had to then readapt the strategy. Like, okay, I'm getting my ass handed to me here, and I don't know why. And so I had to quickly switch up, because then I realized that if I kept the pressure on while dodging, then none of those announcements would come up on the screen. But that was a tough one, man. I actually utilized Barrett more in that one because I could still attack from a distance and then quickly switch to Cloud when Odin's attention was on Barrett, and then quickly get the hits in with Cloud to do enough damage where he would be pleased and not make that call,
Yeah.
But
just thinking about it now, there was some really deep fights that they definitely did a good job mixing it up. Like Odin's one, I totally forgot how long it took me to get through that actually, and just to figure out what was going on in the fight, because it doesn't hold your hand with those fights. Like you just have to figure out that if you take too many hits, you're gonna go down, or if you're not hitting them fast.
The other summons are pretty easy. Like I saw Brianna White playing recently. She was live streaming and she was playing again. She was at the boss battle with Alexander.
Yeah.
So she's at Cosmo Canyon, and I actually found Alexander quite easy because that's more of a structured battle. Like where you can and can't step on the battlefield after he does his rare attack.
Yeah, there was quite a strategy where you could just stay in the air as well, once you locked onto his head, and then just kind of wail on him that way.
If you do Cloud's, is it Firebolt's attack, where it's the mix between fire and thunder, that launches him in, and it will keep him in the air indefinitely as long as you keep landing the hits. I just switched to that, even though that those elements aren't effective against Alexander. But once you're in the air, then you can just keep going, and let the rest of the team, just build up their ATB. So there are easy fixes. Sorry to get off topic.
No, that was great. Because I was also going to mention that the ability to play as Zack and Sephiroth, because they, from a gameplay point of view, obviously the rest of the team, the rest of the party is so much more fleshed out because you play as them more often. So, did you say you didn't enjoy playing as Sephiroth at the start, or you did?
I did. I liked Sephiroth.
Because
I think it's just because it was novel. I think it's because it was novel, and it brought back memories of when you're playing the original Final Fantasy VII and you have the
I can
flashback to Nibelheim, and obviously you can't fully control Sephiroth when you start that battle, but he just like one hits things, or he does like Quake where he does massive damage, and then the Fiend is just eradicated. Like, god damn, I wish I could play as him. But the synergy with Sephiroth and Cloud, even though it's technically not Cloud as we find out later on, but those well, you don't even find that out in Rebirth, I don't think, properly. But
so that's for the original guys. So
yeah. No, I like the synergy. It was great just seeing them work together as well, and how they're calling out to each other.
Yeah,
I thought that was pretty good. But yeah, I think if I had the option to mod, I'm very much a fan of originality. You know, I'd probably just keep with Cloud, because even though he's not, you know, we spoke about this on the last episode, how Barrett has a stronger voice and it's more prominent. I think just because Cloud was the icon that they brought in back in 1997, kind of just, you know, happy with it. It's like, it's not broke, don't try and fix it. But I do appreciate the mods that I'm seeing. I think the fact that they've got the ability to do it on PC, the fact that they're, you know, having fun with it and putting in the detail also it's outstanding. Like, I really do applaud the mod community for what they've done.
I think for me, I also enjoyed playing as Sephiroth at the start, just because I think from that point of the game, he's so much stronger than you are. So he does still feel it's nostalgic of the original game when he does Quake, and he's just so broken in that point. But I think for me, I didn't enjoy Zack as much as I wanted to. You played him like in like really isolated events in the story where there wasn't really a challenge, so you didn't really know his mechanics. Like, it was like that timed like triangle press would charge up your special bar more. So I didn't know that tech was in the game until like right at the end, and that's the final boss battle. So I was panicking, and I was just like, "Oh, what's going on here?" So it was a bit frustrating. But seeing the mod community let you play him like just freely and experiment with his mechanics, and I just saw him do a run of that the hardest Chadley fight arena match where it was like, you know, you fight all the bosses by yourself. I forget. It's like Titans or Clash of Titans or something. And then because they could practice as Zack basically soloed that whole run with his high end move at level 3, and he just wrecked shop. So
no way,
it's pretty insane to watch.
I didn't know that.
So I thought he was the weakest character, but then when you see that, if you do master him, he's probably the strongest if you can kind of work his mechanics into your fighting like strategy. So pretty
Genuinely
insane.
the strongest with that. I was not aware, because I've seen people do crazy builds with Aerith, and this was before the PC release, with like Aerith and Yuffie, where they're just basically overpowered and unstoppable. I didn't, because I've seen people solo Odin with Aerith or Yuffie, and I thought that was crazy.
Serious? Wow, yeah. That is crazy,
because of the build, it's genius when you think, because I wouldn't have thought about it personally, but it actually does work. And a lot of people on Twitter were telling me about this last year at some point, and then they were linking me to videos, so I was going to check them out. And you just see these guys on YouTube where they are just soloing the hardest summons with just Yuffie or Aerith, and it's spectacular to see. I would definitely love to try that with Zack. Obviously, I can't unless I play it on the PC, but I would be curious, because it's weird, because the game story itself, you know, by the end of Rebirth, there's almost the acknowledgement of, even from Zack, he's sort of acknowledging that Cloud is, you know, suddenly stronger than him, but not questioning it too much either. He's just like,
I like that line where it's like, look at you taking charge.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, because he just sees him frozen in, you know, time and space, holding the bus on. He's like, well, you know, this is interesting.
And it's because he makes contact with them, and then he kind of animates into that that dimension.
It's fascinating.
Yeah,
it really is.
So interesting. But yeah, that was a cool scene. And then kind of just going off that, we touched on kind of the release of the PC version, and how they're kind of updating that regularly, or they've done the already like maintaining like a patching maintenance on it. How do you think the PC version kind of affects the development plan of of Part 3, because we just had the 20th anniversary of Final Fantasy VII.
Yes.
That's the original. So from my thoughts, I just kind of wanted to kind of get your idea of if they're going to kind of go back to the drawing board with this whole multi-platform thing and kind of reassess marketing-wise what they're going to do. So
it's interesting you bring that up, because I know one of the execs at Xbox recently, again, I have it bookmarked on Twitter, he recently said like they're not going to try and limit exclusives now. They think it'd be better to get things out across all platforms. And again, I have to check the full article on that, but I was just, I read the first 2 paragraphs, and it seems like from Microsoft and Xbox's perspective, they're going to try and limit the amount of exclusives. Now, I don't know how that would play out for games like Halo and stuff, but, I would imagine they might want to push it out for the, better odds of success for those games in the future. I think and then you have the dynamic of Grand Theft Auto 6, where they've said that, I think they pretty much made it clear now that it's not going to be a PC release at the same time, but I think it's going to be close enough from what they're alluding to. I think if Final Fantasy VII, the project itself, has seen enough recognition and enough positive feedback from the PC community, I think they might do a very, very close release. Maybe not within the 12-month period almost that we had this time around, but I think you could see within the space of 3 to 6 months after the initial PlayStation release. I'd imagine, again, I could be wrong, but I'd imagine they want to aim for 2027 just because, the 7 makes sense. If they've already got majority of the work done. I think if there's enough, the thing is, it comes down to sales as well. Now, PC sales for Rebirth were nowhere near what they were for Spider-Man 2. They were phenomenal for games like Spider-Man 2 with the Miles Morales story arc. So that was completely different in itself. I think it was along the lines of like 11 million. I think, I could be wrong. I think it was like 11.5 million for the Spider-Man 2 release. Yeah, but again, maybe it's a broader audience, Yeah. But if they can capitalize on that, if they can obviously take the stunning visuals from the PC games as well, it can definitely do wonders for their marketing. But that's the thing for their marketing is, that's the decision they need to make sooner than later, is how close will a PC release be for the Part 3, because I don't know what that name will be, or will it be simultaneously? But either way, they have to make that decision, because then they have to choose their marketing channels and how they're going to put that message out. And I do think this time around, there's obviously a risk to reward, but this is kind of where Square, and I know I've said this on previous discussions with you, but this is where Square needs to take that risk, and they need to actually put money into buying media, which means like buying traffic on Facebook, Meta, YouTube as well, especially YouTube. Because if you watch a video on YouTube that's Final Fantasy VII related, like one like this or another discussion or a clip, 9 times out of 10 you will get a advertisement for the Final Fantasy mobile game, the Final Fantasy VII. Yeah. So I mean, that's all good and well, but then you kind of need to be moving further from there, because you're staying in the channel that but then you already know the amount of customers that you have to work with, and you can't expect to convert 100% of them. So you have to start looking at, well, who might be interested? And this goes further afield, where I start seeing community and organic exposure. I think I told you about this. I saw shorts about the Turks and Reno especially, and there's an underground community out there, an underground fan base of Final Fantasy VII that don't understand or know about Final Fantasy VII, but they know about Reno, and so they put on the comments like, I have no idea what this is about or what's going on here, but I love Reno.
Yeah,
and so it's got this
that
massive
redhead guy.
Yeah, and they love his character, they love his aesthetic. You've got people swooning over him, probably both women and men. Who the hell knows? But there's people that have the hots for Reno, but they don't understand any of the story of Final Fantasy VII, and that is a good thing, because I watched several anime through that same method. Like the first time I watched My Hero Academia, and I won't go into that because a lot of the fan base, not a lot, there's a small minority of the fan base that hate me for My Hero Academia, and they're welcome to. I don't really care. But I found out about My Hero Academia by seeing shorts, and the short in particular was Shoto versus Midoriya in the exams.
Fight. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's where Endeavor comes down and, he cheers on his son.
Yeah.
And
Shoto!
Shoto! When I watched it, I thought Endeavor was a villain because of the behavior. And I was like, oh, this is weird. There's a potential villain here walking among the crowd, and people are looking at him like, what the hell are you doing here? And these two guys are going at it. But it was very, very short clip. And lo and behold, I then thought, okay, it's time to find out what this is, and it's time to go watch it. So I did. And then upon watching it, the story is completely different to what I was expecting. But I was
kind of a
pleasantly
villain,
surprised.
Though.
Yeah, because he had those tendencies, didn't he? He did have those, and he, the way he treated, obviously, his family, their upbringing and stuff, like, yes, definitely a darker side to that man. And then he has the whole redemption, and still on the redemption path, no doubt. But when you actually get into the story, it's still not a bad thing. It's what you expect versus what it is. Two different things, worlds apart, but still both great. Like, one reality doesn't ruin the dream or the fantasy that you had in your head. I guess that's the way I'm
canon or whatever.
Head canon. I forgot about that. So that's great.
So what is picking up on the Reno kind of fan base there? I think it just speaks volumes to like the strength of like Tetsuya Nomura's character designs, and like how he's managed to capture this stylistic style of this kind of business fantasy, gritty style that he's still pretty boys and pretty girls, like kind of aesthetics from Japanese kind of, or the Japanese kind of twist on things. Because Reno's character is quite funny in how he's designed, but there's another redhead character from another series that Tetsuya's also designed in Kingdom Hearts. There's a guy called Axel, and he's also got a cult following where people just love his design. And then he's in like the most recent games as well. He breaks the fourth wall to be like, yeah, you know how many people love me? Like, it's so funny. I don't know if it's the redhead characters or because he's got the same voice actor as Reno from previously. So it's so funny. Yeah, I think they should maybe capitalize on some of the designs, maybe these niche fan bases, and see what's really there that people are really taking to. Because even with them, that's their entry point into the series, is that they like this character, so they'll dress up as him or her at Anime Con and get engaged with the story that way. So it's
very well
pretty
written.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because I liked Reno. I don't know if you noticed the same, but when I watched Advent Children for the first time, they wrote the story so well that they had you rooting for the Turks.
You did,
when they're fighting the remnants,
Yeah.
And they kind of nerfed. I don't know if it was just the remnants of Sephiroth were so
strong,
powerful that they seemed nerfed, but it did give like they were true underdogs. They really were struggling. But then you look at it from the perspective of the game, and it's Cloud versus the Turks, and really and truly, like, Cloud can wipe the floor with the Turks. There's no question about that.
He seems so much stronger than you were in the game, because obviously they were the top dogs in the game.
Yeah,
and it's just he just locks Reno outside. He just sidesteps him and locks him outside. It's so funny.
But I think it's because they make those boss battles challenging, which they should, of course. But then I always default back to the cutscenes that follow, like, when Cloud fights Reno in the church, the cutscene alludes that Cloud basically cleaned the floor with him and he's about to execute him until Aerith stops him. And then obviously Rude follows that up by when he confronts Cloud, he's like, yeah, you done over one of my teammates pretty bad. Gotta, cross my T's and dot my I's. But and then the battle on the plate in Sector 7 Midgar, by the end, when you've actually done the battle and the cutscene ensues, both Reno and Rude are pretty beat up on the floor after Barrett and Cloud and Tiva have, handled them. And it's always a tough one, though, because, like you said, there's a bit of headcanon there, because the boss battle is meant to be challenging, but the reality seems to be, no, when you follow just a story, these guys, there's a massive disparity. But it doesn't make Reno any less cooler. He is a very cool character. Yeah. He's got some very sharp wit. Yeah, his one-liners are just great. I love his one-liners.
Yeah. I think, it's also that thing where it's like they've almost become an ally in Advent Children. So it was like they had to get nerfed, or like everyone loves a heel, so they were the underdogs going into their fights. So, but yeah, Reno, another great character on the roster there. But just going back to that, the release window for Final Fantasy VII Part 3 Revolution, or whatever it's going to be called. I think I'm the same with you. I'm predicting the 2027 release, or wherever the 30th anniversary falls in as well, because I think that'll be a big thing for them, just to maybe cap it off at that number, which I think would be 2027 if the 20th anniversary was this year, 29th. Then so I think 2027 being Final Fantasy VII and also being the 30th anniversary will be the big time to release Part 3, either just for the PlayStation or multi-platform as well. And then historically, they've done quite well with multi-platform games, like with Final Fantasy 15, even though I don't particularly like that title. It did kind of shake things up with being released for a greater audience. So I'm sure they'll probably take the risks they need to, or at least learn from that too.
Well, I've seen, they're doing their podcast. I don't know if it's consistent, but I know John Bentley and Brianna were, doing their podcast sessions. I don't know if that's going to be a regular thing.
Yeah.
But I think, it's definitely a good thing, those two doing it. But I also think about it from the perspective where the gaming developing staff and team need to get out there as well and get support. Now, it's difficult because obviously the language barrier from the Japanese side of the team. So that is difficult there for sure. But, folks like Lex Friedman, he's done multilingual podcasts where he's obviously traveled the world, spoke to people in Ukraine, Russia, even in Spanish-speaking countries as well, where he's had those episodes translated, and they sound really, really well. So I do think there's potential there. But then there's also, the English-speaking parts of the Square Enix team. It doesn't have to be exclusive to Final Fantasy VII. If they really want to, put in the most impact with the minimal risk, this would be it. It's, hosting Twitter spaces, going on podcasts, engaging with the community, but taking the skills that they have in a teachable format where, someone can learn something from you. And that's kind of what I like about Lex Friedman's podcast, is he will take folks from the gaming industry, and he's actually doing it at the moment. He put out an announcement asking for recommendations and referrals. And it's obviously, yes, they want to talk about the game and the company they work for, but I imagine these people also talk about the expertise that they bring, how it's crafted, how other people can learn it, what doors it can open, and so forth. Because there's always a story behind it, And I think, especially from the power of storytelling itself, if they can get those folks on board who have a significant role in crafting stories for a lot of these games, that would be the ideal way. I know Tim Ferriss recently had on a really, really successful author in the fantasy and sci-fi realm, Brandon Sanderson. And he's wrote multiple series, Mistborn. I think is it the Storm Archives? I may be mispronouncing that one. But he's done so well. For one series of his books alone, he raised over $40 million on Kickstarter for this series. And obviously he's been going before and after that, so he's got insane publishing deals. But when you listen to his story of how he operates, that's the interesting part. As someone who writes professionally themselves, I like listening to people like that, because I can never mirror their style of work, because I have my own style, but I can never mirror theirs. But it's fascinating for me to think, well, that's crazy because that just wouldn't work for me. But this guy, he does it, and it works in spades. So one thing he did was write 5 books with the intention to never release them before he released his first book. And to think the time it takes to write one book, edit it, go over the draft again, revise it all the way till you get to the final draft. This guy did that 5 times. So how many years? Who the hell knows? But he did that 5 times before he released an actual book into the world. And for him, it paid off in spades because, you know, whether you call it a franchise or not, it's huge what he's built. And people really talk about the world that he's built in these books. And I think if, you know, anyone from Square Enix who has any hand in any of those elements about, you know, why they come up with these stories, why these kind of characters, people love to hear about that because they want to get as close to the source as possible to know, like, what does it take to make this? Like, it can't just be an idea. Is there, you know, a bit of inspiration? Or if it is just an idea, what does it take to get enough fuel into it to make it, you know, come to life and grow into this expanding world? I think that's where they need to, if they're really going to do this push as a very close cross-platform release, or, you know, be it a single platform release, this is the time now. They've got, you know, just under 2 years, but this is a time where, and I know budgets and labor, manpower, that's all got restraints on it, of course. But if anyone in that realm is listening of Square Enix, I would say to you, get yourself out there, get on these podcasts, because there's definitely people that want you as a guest and they want to listen to you. And you don't have to be beholden to any one game in the company of Square Enix or any game developer for that matter. But if you want to get new fire into the gaming industry, these are the things you got to do. And if you need proof, I mean, it's the easiest example. Look at last year's election campaign. Look how many podcasts Donald Trump went on versus Kamala Harris. And they found that it really swayed the votes for them with the younger audience. And because she was refusing to do it at first, and then she wanted to put limits on it. I think with Joe Rogan, he said, like, they wanted to contain it to like a 45-minute interview, not in his studio, somewhere else with set questions. Meanwhile, Trump walks on set. Was it over nearly 3 hours, something great? But he was doing that repeatedly. And the whole exposure to his campaign just went through the roof till he had this landslide victory in, you know, the United States of America. And none of that was by accident. Even his younger son, who's like a giant, don't know if you saw him, Barron Trump, he's like 7 foot tall. And there's some great memes out there where he's like as tall as the Washington Monument. And when he's walking the ground, like there's a helicopter flying past and he's waving at it like head height with the helicopter. And it's great, but that's the power of it. By putting your presence out there, this is what you create. Everyone's going to have people that hate, especially in politics. You're going to have people that hate you, people that love you, people that just, don't care. But when it comes to the internet, stories and memes, most people are interested in a good story. Most people are happy to look at a good meme. And this is how you do it. You have to be willing to get out there. Some companies are aware of this, and that's why they get so much support. Other companies, not so much, and that's why they're going to slowly dry out. And again, it's a call to action. You need to be willing to get out there and put more time in with the people, because at the end of the day, they're going to be your customers.
Yeah, and I totally agree with the exposure part. And I think for Square Enix, who's a Japanese company, I think they're just, it can be, I feel like there are restrictions there that we're probably not aware of in terms of what they can do. But I think they're slowly coming around to the idea as well. So hopefully they get across with it within these next 2 years, like we said. Yeah, me too, man. And if they want to help on this podcast, we'll be happy to have them. So yeah.
That's the plan.
That's the plan. Cool. Excellent. So that kind of ties us in nicely to kind of the meat of this kind of session that we've got here. And that's storytelling in gaming, and kind of what does it take these days for a game to kind of be a AAA title? Is it solely on the story alone, or is it gameplay? Is it the fan base? Is it the community engagement. And this has just kind of been spurred on by my recent completion of Metaphor Refantasia. And
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you. So I think I was on the fence about it last time we spoke, but the ending, and man, it was a slog. It was a huge slog because the way I play games, I play them on the hardest difficulty, and then I also kind of break it a little bit, where I kind of train for the final boss, like anime style, where I have this training kind of session, and I try to max out as much as I can, at least the main character. So you, not to do any spoilers, but you're given a set amount of time in the calendar to build up for this final fight, and yeah, I spent ages on it, almost 2 weeks or a week or so, a week and a half, kind of building up to it. But
Wow.
the payoff for the final fights, I think, was pretty good, and it kind of wrapped up the story quite nicely. Just with the recent kind of, they weren't awards per se, but there were those nominations, the game developer convention that was just hosted on Twitter, I think, or that it just had. And I think Astrobot and Black Myth Wukong were on top of those nomination lists.
As always.
Yeah, it seemed to be, this is a 2024 bleeding into 2025 story here. But Metaphor also made that top 6, and Final Fantasy didn't. So it was just, it's still like this kind of, I don't know where the disconnect is, because Final Fantasy isn't, like, obviously an equally fantastic story to Metaphor, if not even better. But I just want to kind of get to the bottom of what's so different about them, and why Metaphor won RPG of the Year last year, as opposed to Final Fantasy VII only winning best soundtrack. So sorry, just to toss it back to you there. What do you think? Is the narrative strong enough, or is gameplay?
Before I answer, can I make one request?
Yeah, go for it.
Can I pee real quick?
Oh, yeah, go. Yeah.
I've got the answer ready. Well, I've got it's not the answer. I've got an answer, but I figured I should relieve myself first and then continue, if you don't
100%.
mind.
Go for it, man.
Okay, and then what I'll do is I'll cut in a segment where it says 1 hour later, and then, I'm...
Yeah. For the audience at home, I didn't want to make him feel like that he was locked there, so we'll let him go this time. Hey man, you alright?
I am. I'm relieved.
Yeah.
Is audio and video okay?
Yeah, it was good.
I can mostly only give personal preference on this, but I'll share it all the same. For me, storytelling is massive. I found as time goes by, I play fewer and fewer games, but one thing that's always kept me involved in the game is the story. It's always going to be the story. So I tried to play Marvel's Rivals recently, and just couldn't. I got through the tutorial. I mean, you don't have to, but I went into the tutorial. It's pretty much, like a copy and paste of Overwatch. I know I'll get so much flack for saying that, but hey ho. Yeah, I just couldn't. After the tutorials, I'm bored already, and I tuned out. And I've played Overwatch before, and it's okay with friends, but it also makes me think about when I play games like Halo. Now, the first time I played Halo was Halo 2, and I played multiplayer. And again, I was with friends playing it, great camaraderie. It was just good times all around, really great action back in those days as well. God, I sound old. But
it was good action. So
yeah. And then Halo 3 came out, and I played Halo 3 campaign, co-op campaign, and then online. And then I thought, okay, I should go back and play Halo 2 campaign. I never played that. So there was a dynamic when I was younger where I would be all for the team sport element of the game, as long as there was, that real adventure part to it. But ultimately, it's all about, for me personally, story. If there's not a good story or a strong indication of a story at the beginning of a game, I tend not to go any further with it. And Elden Ring is my greatest example. I remember the opening sequence, and there's the narrator there. I just wasn't getting it. I thought, okay, you're trying to tell a story, but you're not doing it that well. Like, you should be hitting me with key points that resonate in my brain, where it makes me think, okay, that's a detail. I'm going to capture that. There's another detail. this is this world, I'm going to capture that. None of that was really happening. And then, you're thrust into the game and you start, and again, the world you want to build is the world you want to build. Everyone's welcome to it. When I came into that, it looked very dull, very dreary, but obviously there is a hopelessness element to the game as well. And I just thought, oh, this doesn't really, no, I'm not feeling it. That's how I felt about it. And I just felt ultimately I would be roaming around, engaging in duels and battles for the sake of it. Whereas if you give me a game with a story, and if I want to deviate, to give another example from Final Fantasy, if I look at the Spider-Man games, again, I know they're more kiddish and stuff, but there is still some decent storytelling where, it takes me back to that old nostalgia of the Spider-Man animated series or the comic books, where I'm like, yeah, you know what, I can dig this. And I kind of want, you kind of know where it's going to go because there's so much history of Spider-Man out there and the villains. But it's still good and enjoyable to do because there's pacing, there's action. So first and foremost, I think, yes, storytelling now more than ever is going to be important in games, because otherwise you're going to end up with this binge-worthy dopamine dump community where you have like Fortnite, and the community there, it's all about the competitive elements. And I think that's good too, because it's a different game. So you either have to have a very good online multiplayer game where people want to compete and they get very intense about it. That's definitely what you need for those kind of games. Then you have in between Call of Duty. I love campaigns on Call of Duty. I love the storytelling on Call of Duty more than I'm not great at the online multiplayer anymore. I just don't have the energy for it like I used to. But I love the storytelling of their games. I think they're really, really well done. Mostly overlooked because, and I don't blame these people, they just want to get in, play the multiplayer, get their ranks up, have the bragging rights. All for that. Do it. Go for it. Get intense. Get to work. But for me, I actually like playing those campaigns. I like the action, the emotion, the intensity. It's all there and it's done so well. And even the music and the soundtracks are great as well with those games. And then when you have games like the RPGs, like Final Fantasy and Metaphor, it has to be storytelling. It can't be anything else personally. Like those games, that category depends on a well-told story, and it has to be paced. And obviously there's definitely criticism about the pacing of Rebirth, and I do get that. And the counter argument is, well, don't do all the side quests, and then it doesn't feel as bad. But like you said earlier with Metaphor, you kind of have to level up if you want to scale the game accordingly. Yeah. And, also there's still a lot of meat to the game, there's still a lot of exploring. So there's definitely two sides to it, and they're both fair arguments on that note, I would say. But for RPGs and JRPGs, I think that's the bedrock. Storytelling is the bedrock of RPGs and JRPGs. But it is my personal opinion, personal preference. There could be someone out there that says, no, I don't care. I just want to have fun leveling up a character, making it OP, and the gameplay in between. Which, I would agree. My next element would be bedrock story. Second layer would be great gameplay. That's why I love Remake and Rebirth, is because the combat sequence I find is one of my favorite of all time, because it's so dynamic. Obviously it's not turn-based, have to keep saying that, but it's no longer turn-based. But
so if you think it's turn-based, look at that video on the Final Fantasy page with Sunil, is Sunil's gameplay, because that is insane with Tifa. So yeah.
Is that Sunil's gameplay?
They said Sunil picked up, I think the comment was Sunil picked up Final Fantasy VII on the PC, and this is what he did. So I was like, oh, okay.
No, that's impressive. That air combo was phenomenal. But that's insane, what I like about it, because those battles, between the combination of the storytelling, the narrative as it leads, and then the soundtrack, then the battle sequence, it gives a fully immersive experience with those games. Because once the battle starts with Rebirth or Remake and the music kicks in, you actually, well, at least I do, I feel like the story's still there. I'm fighting in the story. That's how it feels. Yeah. Whereas some games, it's, just change into battle scene, and then it's all about the battle, and then it's just dilutes the whole narrative, and then you go back and you're roaming around to the next battle. And for today's RPGs, I think it has to be an all-in-one experience. You've got to feel like you're thrown into it. That's how I would say you make a battle sequence of any RPG game as perfect as it can be. You've got to feel like you've been thrown into the intense part of the story where, you know, your adrenaline's up here and you're high. You want to win kind of thing, not like, oh, okay, I've got to press this, and this, and then I've just got to do this like a chore. It's got to make you feel like you want to fight and you want this character to succeed.
Yeah,
that's the best I can articulate it, man. It's a hard way to answer it. Ultimately,
that's brilliant. Yeah.
Thank you. But yeah, storytelling for me at least, I just love a good story, man. And I just see the world today, you know, the complaints we see about Hollywood, TV shows in general, they're losing the depth of what they used to have in terms of stories. You know, you'll see people say, oh, they don't make it like this anymore. And I've had this discussion with other friends in the world of neuroscience and psychology. You know, is it just an attention span because we're so fractured by smart devices and social media? We've definitely had that discussion at length. But, you know, I'm also one of those people where I can put my phone down and I can watch a TV show or a movie and I'll get a good idea of whether it's captivating me or if it's not. And I would say companies have focused more on profit than storytelling over the years, and that's been their downfall.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for that insight there. Yeah. I think I'm also the same as you. I totally agree with storytelling being the core of what a game should be. Because I think we've had this discussion where we've like kind of related games to like a good book or a good lesson, or there has to be some like a point to it overall. And I feel like, the RPGs is kind of where I live because of that, the stories that are told in them. But you mentioned Call of Duty as well, and I do agree. The old school Call of Duty kind of did the campaigns a lot better. I think I peaked at Modern Warfare 2 maybe was my favorite Call of Duty, the original one, because that campaign was really good. But over the years, I think we've seen this trend of going where the money is anyway. So online multiplayers that have a longevity or a longer lifespan than, say, your typical AAA game that doesn't have any kind of multi-platform or online kind of ability. So I think with Call of Duty, they've marketed like you can buy guns now, you can buy skins. So there's just that playing into that that kind of aspect of the monetizing gaming a little bit, which I can see the appeal, but at the same time, I feel like so much is lost in gaming today because people are just there for the quick fix, where they play a session a day, like play a game, like an online match once a day, and just to do their dailies or whatever, and then they're out, instead of actually like putting down their phones or just like getting immersed in a story. So I think if I was to give any recognition to Metaphor for us for its nominations last year and winning that RPG award, was that it does tell a story. And I think the great advantage it does have over 7 is that it doesn't hold back. It is I'm not sure if there's going to be a sequel. I don't think there will be, but I think because 7 has this plan to be a trilogy and it's trying to do so much more, I feel like its storytelling, where people criticize it for pacing issues or it not feeling complete, or them ending it at weird places for Remake, Rebirth, and then the third part. I think they are playing it, like not playing it safe, but there's just certain things that they have to do to make sure it reaches that conclusion that they want in part 3. I think that's still a divisive thing for the fan base, where they maybe expected just one game for this remake.
I saw that from before Remake was even made. You know, I remember a YouTuber crying and screaming, saying that Square Enix had screwed everyone over. And look, man, I don't know where people get their knowledge from or lack of, but I've said it openly on Twitter and I'll say it again. You try and put Remake and Rebirth into one game. Well, first of all, it's not going onto one disc. I can tell you that now. It's not. So you're going to have multiple discs, which again, to make the time it takes to make those games, still going to be the same, still going to take the exact same amount of time. So you'd still be waiting now if they made it all into one game. Yeah. That's the reality of it. I think, I don't know, people just love a reason to complain and to feel victimized. I think if you're producing great work of a great quality and you're actually taking the time to ensure that it's great, which let's face it, if Square Enix could get these games out faster with the expectations of having people waiting for the next part and the next part, and that would mean they make more sales, more money, they would absolutely do that. But there's a process to it and they want to be very meticulous. So we should be over the fact of this is out in 3 parts now, and it's not the same game. And that's the other BS argument is, oh, well, it's not a remake. They shouldn't call it a remake. And so, well, what do you want them to call it? Final Fantasy, the Metaverse, or Final Fantasy, the Multiverse? What do you want? Like, really, when will you be happy? Yeah. The answer, we're still waiting. Yeah. Because they don't know either. So honestly, I try not to, if someone jumps in on one of my posts with that kind of nonsense, I do just set it straight. But those people, they are just, they're their own afterthoughts. If you're going to think that way about this game, another game, and another game, there's no pleasing people like that. And you should never, ever try to accommodate people in the market of that nature either, because they'll never buy from you because they'll find every complaint and excuse to not buy from you. And 2, even if they do, they will validate that as a reason for them to complain further because, like, no, I bought the game, I'm entitled to complain. Yes, you are entitled to complain, but you're not entitled to have that validated as a fact because more often than not, it's not.
Yeah. I think from like, just to tie it loosely together, I guess it's that I think Square's done with the 3 parts, they've adapted to the market that is now to ensure that this game has like the longevity and the attention that they have, that a project like this requires to deliver it to the fans who have been waiting for 20 years, 30 years for this remake. So so to split it into 3, I think they've kind of done their best to emulate what those games like Call of Duty that have stronger longevity, who have a online play, like an ongoing kind of life cycle. So I think all those naysayers and all those critiques are going to be put to bed in this final part. I hope anyway.
I'm sure they'll still find something to complain about.
Yeah, but I think just going back to what like the metaphor was, that it didn't hold back and there was a complete story. Once this story in part 3 is completed, I think there'll be a more kind of a united front in how good the trilogy has been. So I'm looking forward to that anyway for
I like
7.
that optimism. Yeah, I really do. The reason why I couldn't take to metaphor, and this is also, again, it's personal preference, and this is also why I push back on those that have very empty, unfair criticism against games like Rebirth and Remake, is the era that we live in now and the technology we have available to make like stunningly visual games, with just beautiful aesthetics. You should absolutely want to leverage that. You should absolutely want to incorporate that into it, especially if it's a game from the past where, this technology just didn't exist at the time. It was something everyone dreamed about. You should absolutely want to leverage that. And, Resident Evil did it with their remakes. And, I know there's comparisons where they say, well, look, they did Resident Evil on one disc and so on and so on. But, you have a game like Final Fantasy VII Remake and 7 Rebirth, where Final Fantasy VII Original, what it was known for back on the PS1 was, once you got to the cutscenes, people were just mind-blown with how well those cutscenes were done. It was the closest thing to real, at that time. Where you're like, oh my God, this is stunning. This is close to being a very good 3D movie or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Whereas,
Sorry, go.
go ahead.
I don't know. I
No,
would say they definitely popularized those cutscenes. Like
yeah,
games now have so many cutscenes because of what they saw back then and what they saw was possible in making like
right.
a movie, a mini movie or mini narrative, and how much disposition you can do in a cutscene. So yeah.
And people do refer to, I've seen it being referred to as a movie game now. And again, the only complaints I see are from, if I had to psychoanalyze those people, I would say they're more in the camp of wanting their daily hits. Like you said earlier, it's like these people don't really care for story. They just need some action and intense emotion to fill that need of, it's not just dopamine. There's other pursuits in mind, but emotions are very addictive for people. In fact, addiction to certain emotions can lead primarily, more often than not, to addiction of substance. And a lot of people don't realize what their outlet is, or what they're using to fill that void. Another conversation for another time. But those people that complain about story type games, they're just not interested in story, and the only reason they play a game is because it's filling a certain hit that they need filled. And if they couldn't get it from a game, they would definitely go elsewhere to look for it. It's just everyone picks their poison ultimately. But I do think leveraging the technology is just, why wouldn't you? Like if you can make something that, when aesthetics are everything, especially in marketing. If you had someone narrating what a game entails with a black screen, no one would buy it. Like no matter how much of an audible picture you try to create for them, it just wouldn't work. So if you can show someone a cutscene, or better yet, a play scene, and put actual gameplay in footage at the bottom, it's like that's ultimate leverage. And in this, this day and age, you don't need to go any further than what we've got now with games. And again, personal opinion, people can challenge that all they like, especially with VR and stuff. But with the visuals you have, the ability, with the cutscenes we have, the quality there, I think if we're at a very good peak where, we could be very happy with this for a decade or even more, when you're remaking a game from the past that got all the accolades because of its storytelling, its visual aesthetics, like you should want to make sure you're banking on that this time around. Because if they made a game where it looked like Final Fantasy VII from the 1990s, and the characters look like that when you're running around, like people would be going ape shit. They would be looking to cancel Square Enix, saying, no, screw these guys. They've just, took the lazy route. So I think you have to do it this way. And it's just a preference for me. It's when I tried Metaphor for, best part of an hour. So I didn't even give it enough time to give a fair comment on it. But I like both storytelling and, that visual beauty. I love both of that amplified as much as it can be. And that's why, I'll easily flock to a game like Final Fantasy XVI, Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth. But with Metaphor, because the graphics weren't what I was accustomed to and, sensitized to through Final Fantasy, that was where I was like, oh man, my brain knows there's something missing here from my preference set. Yeah. And so it was just hard to stay with it. And then obviously I like the dialogue, I like the narrative, because I actually want to be immersed in a story or movie where I'm playing through it at the same time. And that for me, it's just personal preference, because I'm not saying, clearly it's not a failure on their part because they won awards. But I think, and again, so that in terms of Metaphor, just personal preference. When people try to say remakes should be exactly the same as, what it was in the past, that's just a silly empty complaint, because we have amazing technology to do amazing things. But what I will concede is that, again, Metaphor making the sales it has, winning the awards it has, clearly shows that there is this customer target audience of nostalgia where people still like to enjoy those kind of games with that kind of aesthetic. And I do support it, because if it's a strong enough market, I think people should still keep making games to tailor to those people as well.
Excellent points there. I kind of like the dialogue we got going for and against for Metaphor and Final Fantasy there. So, which ties us kind of nicely going into like we can kind of see how heated things get with fan bases and how people kind of identify with the game or how they game these days. So and we've run into our fair share of kind of people online that will die on a hill for a certain point or a certain fan game or a certain kind of pairing for games. So I guess I just want to know, how do I phrase this?
You know it's gonna be inflammatory when you have to say, how do I
yeah.
phrase this?
Yeah, like with how things are and how like social gaming has become, like um have you found like an excess in like negativity in gaming nowadays as to like back in 1997 when Final Fantasy VII released then? Because I think we were so much more isolated then. It was like more a personal experience where you play the game yourself individually, and then if you happen to meet someone else who plays it, then that you bond over that. And then it's just like, oh, did you love this bit? Did you love that bit? And then it's just like, oh, that's really cool. And that's how I that's why I gravitate to story games. That's how I predominantly experienced games in the past, was that I would just go out and meet people, and if they happen to play it, and then it's cool, we'd bond over that, and that's how I'd make friends. So, but now it's so much more like, oh, have you played this? Why haven't you played this? Or why didn't you like that? So, just in this space, yeah, the negativity in gaming these days. I just wanted to get your ideas on it. And is it ruining it? Is it good for gaming? Is it bad?
So, because that's really interesting framing, and it's good framing how you put it. One thing that I also thought of is when you said back before the invention of broadband internet and social media, if you like the game, you confirm that with another. If you didn't like a game, you barely even mentioned it. You might say, "Oh yeah, I don't really like that," or "I don't play it," and that you just moved on. Like I don't remember having any heated discussions about games I didn't like or didn't play. There was just some of my friends played these games and I played the same. Some played certain sports games, outside of like FIFA and Pro Evolution Soccer that I also played, and they might play a different game. I'm like, yeah, I don't play it. That's it. I think the negativity. Because if I go down this rabbit hole, I would have to be fair and say it's not that there's excess negativity in gaming. There's excess negativity on social media around gaming. That's where it seems to be spawning more than anything. And I think that negativity from those individuals that bring it to social media could easily be transferred into other areas of life as well. Because again, it goes back to, the personalities that won't be pleased, and you shouldn't try to please, because I do think there's a certain characteristic about those people that they're just looking for someone to hate, and they're also looking for a reason to be offended on a daily basis, and they're probably not in the best of places in life. But because of the competitive nature of gaming, and there is an element of like trash talking and stuff, but that used to stay contained, like if you played Call of Duty online, I didn't notice it as much on Halo. I noticed it more on Call of Duties. That comes with the territory. When you're competitive, there can be, a bit of poking at each other verbally, and then obviously the showmanship of who wins, who loses, and then there is the trash talk. And yeah, it can get very heated, it can get very explicit, but it used to tend to stay in that realm, and it kind of still does for those folks. Games like Call of Duty, but then there is this other sphere of not just gaming, the online world in general, but it transfers into these realms of gaming and stuff where people seek to bully others on there. And I had it wasn't for me personally, but my youngest nephew, I remember when Sea of Thieves was a new game, and he wanted to play it, so I bought it for him, and I bought it for my other nephew. And I remember going to visit him one day, and I remember going upstairs and he was playing it, and there was, when you can have the headset on, but you can still have the voice coming through the TV speakers as well as the headset. I could hear these lads telling him to, saying, if you want to join our crew, you have to kill yourself. So he would kill himself in game, like, no, you have to kill yourself in real life. So I heard that and I, lost my shit, and I took the headset, and then, but also I'm quite handy. I know if you bridge the connection to a PC that you can find IP addresses and stuff, especially through Xbox Party.
Yeah.
So I managed to find that these guys are in Manchester. Now I couldn't pinpoint the exact location, but it was enough for me to scare them and say, what did you just say to him? And he was like, who are you? I was like, you should answer the question, because I know at least this much you're in Manchester. And I have a lot of free time and a lot of resources, so I can come and find you. And then, he's like, oh, no, it's a joke. I'm like, do you know how old he is? He's like, yeah, I asked him. I was like, so first of all, how old are you? And he's like, I'm 19. I was like, so you're a grown man by legal standards asking a kid how old he is, and then you're trying to tell him to kill himself. Like, what is going on in your head? And, I went a lot further. I put the fear of God into him, because I thought, first of all, that's family, so don't do that. But second of all, there's characters that exist on the internet for this reason. And obviously, to want to enact that kind of behavior, you have to have a very, very dark side to you, but you also have to have an unresolved dark side to want to project that onto people for entertainment purposes as well, because that's potentially innate evil to think that, okay, I would love to see this happen to someone for amusement purposes. So there is that element of toxicity where it's bullying, and it, that's one spectrum of the negative behavior. But then there seems to be more and more this, the expanding spectrum I see is the self-loathing victim mentality that's spreading through the gaming community. And, I'm not going to be unfair and say it's solely the gamers, because I've seen, people give examples of the developers as well, but they're all still part of that community. It's just there's two sides, there's buyers and sellers. That's all it is. There is an increase, and because of social media, I think it's the more politics injects itself into things, the worse it's going to get, because there's just no escaping it. And the more time you spend on social media, the more time you spend watching the news or TV, the more you're going to buy into these narratives that, if you hadn't have paid attention, they wouldn't even play a part in your life. Now, granted, if you live in dense cities where there's crime rates and all manner of, mischief going on, yes, you're going to be exposed to it on a daily basis. Lived in the city myself up until, last year, so I know all about it. I know all about the corruption as well, so I won't dismiss that. But if you have relatively a quiet life where, you go to work, you carry out your working day, you come home, you're with family, friends, and beyond that, nothing else is happening to you in and around your world. Now, okay, you can put a pin in policy where you're saying like taxes are rising, inflation's rising. I won't dismiss that either. Definitely put pins in those. But if, aside from those two parameters, you're going about your life and nothing direct is coming at you where it has this impact, but you still choose to get riled up about stuff that you see on the internet or on TV and then carry it into other spheres, or allow others to carry it into those spheres, that's where you're just going to end up with this big puddle of hatred between two communities, and no one's ever going to take responsibility either. That's the other problem, and Elon has recently started coming out with this pushback against woke game developers, and now other news outlets on Twitter and other articles are now sort of publishing the same narrative. And like that's okay, but one, you should identify the source. Two, you should also be willing to put in a boundary rather than just talk about it for the sake of talking about it. Because what you do when you talk about it is you now open up this platform for another heated discussion on top of another heated discussion, and so on and so on. And so it never, ever ends. And, it all stems back to politics. That's the frustrating part, is because if you look at what the woke movement was in, say, 2014 to 2016. Now, I saw it on Instagram, and it's the opposite of what it is today. So it was like anti-big government, anti-big tech. It was about being aware of what's put into your food, into your water. You saw different movements of, being mindful of fluoride, not eating vegetables and crops that have been sprayed with pesticides, all relatively, reasonable stuff. And also, being aware of narratives that get pushed through government, then pushed through media to divide people, because that's ultimately what these narratives do. And the term wasn't so much like the slang cool term was woke, but you used to see people like calling themselves awakened or aiming to become awakened from, and it wasn't just, to food and substance, also like the wars that have happened in the world. You would see people discussing that, corporate corruption as well, that had also been carried out and had been swept under the rug. You saw all manner of it. And then now it's kind of switched, because what would have happened between then and now is you would see either like politics is about, the numbers ultimately, right? They need the numbers to get the votes, to get the support. So you would have saw either two things or one of two things, where you would have saw a politician say, if I can leverage that group, because there seems to be a lot of them on the internet, and I can really push these let's say these tragedies that they're proclaiming, I can leverage them to be my voting group. So you would have saw that from politicians, but then you would have also seen the extreme part of it, where people in that minority of this group would say, well, I'm going to get into politics and I'm going to change this. And so then you've got two amplifications, where now you've got someone from this small minority narrative saying, I'm going to take this narrative and I'm going to make it bigger than it is. But then because you've done that, all these other people can start throwing theirs into it, and they can say, well, hold on, why is your tragedy any more tragic than mine? What about, and then that's where they play the equality card against each other. It's like, no, all tragedies are equal, and they bring them all in. And then next thing you know, if you say, you know what, I'm a fence sitter, I don't want to be involved in any of it. Like, this is my room, these are my four walls, and I just want to chill out and play a game and not pick any side. Then you get people say, you're a monster, you're allowing evil to exist, and you have all these manner of accusations.
Yeah,
exactly. You can't be Switzerland, so to speak. And so it, eventually it snowballs into something else where, come say 2020, because I still remember 2018, I still remember 2019 very well, where it wasn't really a thing. Okay, in America, you had the large narrative that was coming through the mainstream media about, hate Trump supporters and so forth. But that was pretty much it. Like, I'm not going to say it wasn't a big deal. It was because of the size of America, it's made into a big deal, right? And the size of the publications, it's made into a bigger deal. But again, people saw where attention goes, and how we're wired for negativity. Like we are more attracted to negativity and stress than we are optimism and, harmony, with just our primitive survival mechanism. So people have been able to leverage that and just inject it into any manner of, spectrum that they can, just to almost like shove it down people's throats, because of people saying, look, this is stupid, this is childish, I'm not interested, I want to live my life. Like you said, people weren't allowed to be neutral. And there's now been this movement where it is like, you've got to force it in front of everyone, and you've got to force them to pick a side. And if they don't pick a side, or if they don't pick your side, go at them with this, accuse them of that. And now it happens on a daily bloody basis. And then you've got, people that lie. People lie every bloody day on the internet. So you'll have people that come into these forums on Twitter and other places, and they'll create their own story about things, or sometimes there's a genuine story, but they'll make it a bigger deal than it needs to be. And I think ultimately, the more people participate in that mess, the messier it's going to get. It's like, there's a great philosopher, Alan Watts, and he's talking about certain problems in life, or certain communications where they get very heated and very messy. And he says, like, when you have a dirty river, or, a dirty stream, the best way to let it, to clean it, is to leave it, because eventually the stream will just wash it away, the muddy flow. I kind of do that now. Obviously, you've seen me get involved in some discussions on Twitter.
Yeah.
But I try and I will always call out lies where I see it, because I think that's the other part, is that so many people in big positions have been allowed to lie for so many years, in like high status positions, people on the ground in the general public and everyday life see that as a green flag and a green light for them to go and start lying. And you see it on little, like, I called out something, got a lot of engagement, positive engagement on my part, but there was a video on Twitter where it's a man in Eastern Europe and he's got these Czechoslovakian wolf dogs. The general breed name is, it's a Czech wolf dog, but it's not an actual wolf. This person ripped the video from him and said this man has, integrated with wild wolves and every day they turn up at his house and whatnot. I've raised and trained a lot of dogs in my life, and I know a wolf and I see one, and that ain't it. And my family had Czech wolf dogs as well, and one of my family's about to get another one, so I know those dogs when I see them. And I just put, this person is lying for engagement farming. And I explained what the breed of the dog was, and then someone came in and said, basically called me a killjoy and said it doesn't make it any less awesome. It's like, well, hold on, because why do you need to lie? Because this person is lying and deceiving people for their own personal gain, not to make people feel good, but they're doing it from the perspective of, I want to basically get engagement so I can get a payout from the ad revenue. And to do that, I'm willing to lie. In business or just in friendship or relationships, that for me is like, no way, you can't have that person around you, because if they're willing to lie about things like this, there's no length to what they'd go to be deceitful for personal gain in life. And that's where it's kind of been important for me, because, if you're going to have any discussion, it needs to be honest. But a lot of people in these two movements, I don't want to say they're both equally bad, because they're not. There's a lot of irrationality, especially that comes from the mob. And if you want to call them an extreme woke mob or whatever term they use, I don't know. But there's a lot of irrationality where, again, it goes back to, if you don't pick a side, if you don't pick my side, I'm going to accuse you of X, Y, and Z. And, that's why a lot of people resort to using anonymous accounts. And that's another bloody rabbit hole there, is people have been so fearful, like you said, about being neutral or just about speaking rational over the years. They've had to resort to going anonymous. Now, obviously, they've probably built up a lot of anger and a lot of resentment. And so this is their new way to vent as well. And it ultimately leads to degeneracy, which, again, I don't like to see. But I think if I was to give one message, because this rabbit hole, I'll be honest, it just takes me down so many paths where it would never end. If I was to summarize a message for the people is, look, if you want to be against the political injections and mob movements, definitely call out the lies when you see it, sure. But don't get into the argument, and because you're just giving these people what they want. They want division. They want heatedness, so that they can carry on doing what they're doing without you knowing that it comes from them. And ultimately, speak or don't speak with your wallets. Like if a game company decides to do something overly political, or if they're just trying to, shove a narrative down your throat that, just does not resonate with the overall gaming community as a whole, then that's where, call out, but you don't need to get into arguments and threaten them or give them slurs. You can literally just say, this is stupid what you're doing. You are not building a game. You are building a political campaign. Not interested, so my money won't be going there. And you can easily do that. And it is easy. Like the hard part is managing your emotions. It's literally that. And that is hard when you've been, in the mess of the internet for decades. I get that's hard, but you saw it with companies like Bud Light. They lost billions when they tried to push their agenda, and they had to full circle back to get a comedian. Because I think he would call himself conservative, and he's a comedian, so I don't think he would care, and I doubt he would see this, but if he did, I doubt he would care. Shane Gillis does an amazing Trump impression, by the way. It's bloody hilarious. Like, it's scary good. And he dresses up like and puts the orange makeup on, but that's another clip for another time. But they had to recruit him, if I remember correctly, to be their new face. But see, he sees the opportunity. When that fallout was happening, he carried on drinking Bud Light, saying, yeah, I'll save them. And eventually they came to him and was like, yeah, he's going to have to save us. But then you can have a bigger example. And this is a very recent one, by the way. This happened in the past few weeks. The big large store in, I guess you could call it like a supermarket / department store in America called Target. So they got a lot of pushback. I want to say it was like 2021, 2022. Again, could be off with it. It was around that sphere. It's in the 20s, right? So what they did was they released this children's trans clothing line. It's very weird because this was like for kids who were like 4 years old, where it would have like it's a women's swimsuit but made for boys, and it would have like it sounds a bit disgusting, but like a padding to cover their nether region. Don't really want to go into it any further than that, but imagine that and extrapolate it in your mind, right? What happened was, obviously, people walk into Target and they see these FSDUs, which are like fixture displays, which promote this, and like, what the hell? Like, this is where I bring my kids to buy clothes. I'm not having this. And so there's a massive pushback on Target. And, people just said, like, we'll boycott you. And so they did. They boycotted them. They sort of heard the call, but then they quietly slipped it back in. So the minute they slipped that, fashion line back in, people were just like, that's it, you're done. And we're done. And I think within the first day or first 2 days of the boycott, they lost $2 billion off their valuation. And wow. Recently now, they tried to dismiss it more than once. The shareholders brought a lawsuit against them because they lost $25 billion off their market capitalization. And this is why I say, like, I know people say to me it's easier said than done, but this is why I would say it's like, yeah, call out lies, because if you check someone with lies and you check them with facts, you put them in a position where human psychology, there's always humility. If someone checks you with a fact, you're going to be very unlikely to try and spread that lie again, because you feel a sense of shame, no matter how egotistical you are. In fact, if you're more egotistical, you will feel more shame for it. So you're going to have to either find another web to spin, or you're probably going to retreat for a bit and learn from that lesson. And I say that from real experience, because that's how I deal with people on the internet. Is if you want to come at me like that guy who said that, oh, you're a killjoy, and I'm paraphrasing, you're this, this, and this. I just said to him, your gaslighting and advocacy for being dishonest and deceitful says more about your character than it does about your loose theories on me. And, I did then just throw a bit of sarcasm at him, saying like, I'm not going to entertain this any further. I'm going to take a dump, have a shower, and go to bed. And I just put, good night, princess. And all he could respond was a gif of Princess Peach from Mario, which tells me you have nothing left to say because I've taken all the bullets out of your proverbial gun. You can do exactly the same with communities and companies. Bud Light tried to really play the victim card against its own former customers. They said to them, you boycotting us makes you, basically saying makes you a monster. They didn't use those words, but they're saying you are putting people out of a job. You are putting, you're costing people by doing this selfish act. That's the worst thing you can say to them, by the way, because that's gaslighting. You're basically deflecting hard. But it just backfired so hard on them. And, if everyone has their own preference with a game, everyone has their own ideal story, their own ideal gameplay. If we can get back to that, because the honest part is the gaming industry isn't dying, by the way. It is growing by a few percent each year. The numbers are there. But if there's potential for these numbers to withdraw, which there very well could be, or for certain developers to start going under and going bust, they need to look at these things where it's a case of, are you focused, like you said earlier, on too much about the pursuit of making money first and foremost? Obviously, you have to make money, but the pursuit should be, you're going to make a good quality title. And for those services rendered, you're going to get good quality sales in return. Like that's what you want. If you're focused on microtransactions, it's a short-term game. It's going to burn out pretty quick. Not all of them, because obviously Fortnite and other games with loot boxes, they still have relevance. They still do well. But you're not always going to make one of those games. You're not always going to hit a Fortnite home run. That's just the reality. So you have to get back to, tailoring to your customer, because, the other thing that gaming developers should wake up to is, if you use Target and Bud Light as an example, those political customers that, scream the loudest, they spend the lowest. Because where were they when these companies were being boycotted? There wasn't enough liquidity coming through to sustain these companies. And that's, a lot of people are still scared of being cancelled, hence why we still have anonymous accounts on Twitter and other platforms. But ultimately, people need to start voting with their wallets, letting that part of the market do its talking. And honestly, it can get better. And maybe an agreement where, people for award ceremonies say, here's the deal, we're all going to agree not to have any political messaging, because this is about games. And the whole point of people playing games was to take a break from the world we live in, which beats us every day. And it's not terrible, but life comes with its own story of arcs, of challenges and stresses, where, there's times where a lot of people, I've even had it myself, where it's like, you can be really feeling the pressure where you're at the bottom, you're at the lowest, and you're like, God damn it, man, like this world is tough right now. And so that's usually your escape, is a good movie, a good series, a good game where it's for 1 hour, 3 hours, like there's your break from the world, there's your brain is, and you're also achieving something. So let's say it's a competitive game, like, you're going to feel good because you've accomplished a certain rank, you've won a certain team battle, whatever.
You get platinum, the achievements. So yeah.
I'll never get platinum, but I'm glad you do. But exactly. Yeah. It's an escape where you can accomplish something on your own terms. That's what it should be left to be, not, trying to pour the chaos and negativity of the real world into it, because we never see people trying to pour the positivity into it and make that a prime example. That just comes as part of a good story. And I think there needs to be that agreement, because I don't know the gaming award. I don't think it. So there's two that I saw recently, and you can probably clarify which. So I saw one, you probably saw the clip, it was on Twitter. I don't know if it was the Real Game Awards, where it's a man and woman, and at the end they're basically saying F Elon Musk, F this, F that. Did you see that one?
I don't think I saw that one, but I think I did. Okay. I did see the Real Gaming Awards, though. But I didn't see it itself.
So basically, it's a male and female host, and they're giving one of the speeches for I don't know at what point, and I thought if you want to have a cheeky jab, it's good. Like, they basically mentioned about Elon Musk paying someone to play his, was it Diablo or another account or something along those lines, right? So yeah, bit of tongue-in-cheek jab. If you wanted it to be tongue-in-cheek, it would have gone very well, but it got very heavy, very fast, and it was so tasteless by the end of it, because you would think to yourself, okay, you probably had a really good atmosphere here going. You've tried to play it off like you're this controversial trickster with jokes, but the audience reaction wasn't exactly huge. And it just leaves a sour taste in your mouth, because you're left thinking, isn't this about games? Like, you've made this personal. You've taken something personal from your life and now projected it onto an entire audience who are here to celebrate games. Like, you've made that very selfish. That's actually very narcissistic. It's covertly narcissistic. That's the important thing, is like, they'll try and make it seem like they're selfless and they're doing it for a good cause. It's very narcissistic. Like, just let people enjoy games. Let people who win the awards be acknowledged for the bloody work that they've put in, because it's not easy. And then I saw one, I can't really repeat this one because the language in there is really, really vulgar. And one, YouTube won't allow it, but two, I just don't feel good. So I don't feel good reading it, let alone saying it, if I'm honest. But this person won an award, and I think you have to pay like a yearly subscription, or you have to pay into the membership for this award ceremony. And they promoted it on Twitter. And they created it was like a horror racing game. The concept looked pretty cool. I'm not a fan of horror games, if I'm honest. Sorry about that, folks. We had a couple of technical issues, but
apologies.
I still know what track we're on, so it's okay.
Good, yeah.
So yeah, I can't recite what I saw. It's very vulgar, but they developed a horror racing game. They won an award for it. They posted it on Twitter, and they made a point of saying like this is supposed to be, I won an award at a supposedly covertly anti-woke gaming ceremony, which I have no idea what the ceremony is, I'll be honest. But it was a racing category that they won, and they made a horror racing game. Personally, I wouldn't play it because, again, graphics, visuals, not great. But I guess for what they're working with technological capability, they've obviously done well. But then they made it into this whole thing where it's like, as a trans woman, I'm going to celebrate, and I'm not going to say the rest, but basically it involved derogatory acts on their dog and sexual acts on their dog as well. And that, whether you're joking or not, no one needs to see that, and you don't need to bring that into the world of gaming because, and you can have the argument, well, kids shouldn't be playing games of a certain age. We all played Grand Theft Auto when we weren't supposed to. We all did,
Yeah,
we all played Call of Duty when we were supposed to. Yeah. So we're all guilty of that. But, that shouldn't give us free reign to be derogatory and just disgusting in any sense of the way just because to say, well, they shouldn't be here. We know they're there. And also, again, it goes back to moral compass. I've been playing games before where played Sea of Thieves, open party. You can clearly tell there's a kid that's joined the party, and it's just, here's the thing. You can say to the kid, okay, look, do your parents know you're playing? Okay. I've said to them, go and check with them that you're okay to play this because you do realize there's adults on this game and you're joining a party with strangers, and they'll go and bless them. Some of them say, yeah, it's fine. But I've always said to other people in the open crew is no cussing. If there's kids in here, you don't cuss, and you don't try and troll them. You don't try and taunt them because, again, it says a lot about you if you want to do that to a little kid first and foremost. But also you could be setting a good standard here where it makes them a better person as well. I saw that. I was really repulsed by their comments. And honestly, the feedback was not great for them after that. Like, people said to them, you done well. You made a great game and you got awarded for it. Like, why can't you just be happy for that? Again, it goes back to that psychology. Some people want something to hate, want a reason to complain, because I imagine in their mind, they were probably banking on the idea of not winning so they could then come onto social media and say, because of how I identify, I didn't win because they locked me out. Instead, you rewarded the game. And again, this is just a theory, but I follow patterns of human behavior. This person won a game. If that was me, I would have capitalized on that momentum hard. I would have made sure everyone in that industry had eyes on me, as many as I could get, to say, I'm good at this. I'm going to be a valuable candidate for any work that you want done on projects in the future. But you go and post something like that, well done. You've shut almost every door possible, because even, the more political companies, they're not going to say, yes, we're looking for vulgarity in our company, in our workspace. We'd love to have that. No one wants that. And again, it's self-loathing behavior. People that hate themselves so much, they need to find things to hate in life to get that hate out of them and to just project it onto as many people as possible. Because it's suffering wanting to spread suffering, misery wanting company, as the old saying goes, misery loves company. And I just thought that was a real shame. But ultimately, it just always full circles back to, this is the nature of social media, unfortunately, because it can be infected with everything and anything, and this is how it gets. But I do think, if more conversations like that you and I have take place and others have in the world, it can be a place where we get back to what it was, where gaming should not be a place where you bring your politics. Obviously, people play online games. They like to have laughs and jokes and memes and stuff. That's part of it. Like, you're supposed to enjoy it. Like, it should be enjoyment. But if you're going to come in with an agenda to cause conflict, you're not in the right space. Like, gaming's not for you. You need to find something else. But it definitely ain't gaming. Sorry about the rant. Yeah, sorry about the rant, man. And like I said, it's a rabbit hole, and there's no end to it. Unfortunately, I tried to analyze this a while back, but it always comes full circle. You'll just keep coming round and round and round.
No, it's really interesting. I think it is something that will garner a lot of discussion, and like, people watching this don't have to agree with us, but I think it's a discussion that's healthy. And like you said, kind of what we were kind of touching on, that what feels like negativity on the internet could just be, it can be normal for certain games, and that like loathing, that self-loathing isn't like, I'm not immune to it, no one's immune to it. Like it's something we all experience. So it's something we can identify within ourselves. That's great. And maybe we can just get back to some more wholesome gaming and keep the spaces. If you have like a critical mind and more of a critical analysis on what's being presented on these platforms, then it can be really helpful for a lot of people, I think. So, and so that we don't get crazy debates about cloud should be like with Tifo, with Aerith, who really cares? But yeah. It's just.
Well, I mean,
funny.
those are more fun debates because those are like, they're story driven and they're like immersive to the game. But it's like, God forbid that's why this small group in My Hero Academia hated me on Twitter, because I didn't like season 7 for the most part.
Yeah.
And it's like, God forbid you don't like it. And I mean, they really tried to pull some straw man arguments out. One woman said, what was it? Something along the lines, again, paraphrasing, because it doesn't have this weak female with big female physiological features. It's not part of my shonen binge or something. I was like, really? And I responded like, if that's your main motive for watching anime, to look at animated genitalia, you do you, but do not drag me down to those disgusting depths with you, because that's not why I do it. And then someone else came out, and because I referred to a lot of the battles as filler, I know they're not filler. I know they're part of the main story, but that doesn't make them good. It doesn't mean every single one's good. It doesn't mean I have to like it. I write for a living, so I know good writing when I see it. I know bad writing when I see it. But ultimately, so do everyday people. Hence why some people will like a show and not like a show, because the writing might not resonate with them. And because I didn't like the one particular arc where it's Himiko and having her battle, I just felt the story, the lore and the story behind that fight was made to appear way deeper than it actually was when you actually go back to the original, the beginning of My Hero Academia all the way to present day. There just wasn't that deep of an origin, but they tried to make it that way, to make it seem like it was more deeper than it had to be. And again, like, I reached out to other people on forums, and like people were like, yeah, this was just way too forced. And ultimately, you have to remember, it's 2 little kids in this battle, and they're saying, I want to save you to talk about romance. I don't want to kill you. And people are like, that was a pivotal fight. That changed the whole direction of the war. Sure. But did that dialogue need to take place?
Yeah.
No, didn't need to. But it's preference. But instead of preference, someone else chimed in. So I got called an effing DICK by someone, because I didn't like it. And someone else came in and said, how dare you, this was important writing. And I said, like, it's preference, and this is why. And I explained to them, and said, no, you are possibly being misogynistic here. I'm like, really?
Wow.
Because there's plenty of scenes from plenty of anime that involve male counterparts, and trust me, I got a lot to say about those. So what are you going to accuse me of being there? And honestly, I confront these people. I say to them, like, if this is how you carry yourself in the real world, how do you expect to get by anywhere? And this person then retaliated with, do you really think I carry myself this way? I'm calling you out for being possibly, again in capitals, misogynistic, you moron. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because if you don't carry yourself the way you do online as you do in the real world, then that also tells me you're a coward and you're a liar, because you don't have the balls to say what's on your mind, and you don't have the control to say it in a very respectful manner. So either way, you've just made yourself look bad as a person, as a character there. It's just silly to behave that way online. Like, you can have a real discussion.
Yeah.
Saw the same with Final Fantasy Rebirth, when you and I were very active on the discussions. I think it was before Christmas.
Was it the PC Gamer one? Or...
no, before that one, where we were basically, and it's not just us, by the way, another YouTuber also found the same conclusion. A lot of people that were complaining about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Remake, they're giving these generic comments, and then what I did was started to press them on very specific points of the game. I'd say, well, what do you think about this scene and this? And they don't have anything to say because they've not played it. So I start calling them out and saying, everything you've told me here leads me to believe you have not played this game. And as soon as you say that, they go quiet. because they're being called on their BS. So again, it's you are willing to go to the length of lying to try and make people hate something that you hate. Why? And the question is, why do you want to hate it? I have a couple of theories behind that. Again, it goes back to self-loathing and just what's popular to hate. If, you can look like a cool contrarian by hating something that was, majority loved. There's that element. I also think there's the element where people may be in a position, and could be off the mark here, but maybe there's an economic reason where it's a case of affordability. Maybe they get mad at these companies, Final Fantasy VII, Square Enix, for making it 3 parts, where they're thinking, I can't spend that on 3 games. That's ridiculous. So I'm not going to play it. And they made that decision from day one. And so they might have a bit of resentment there. But ultimately, I think it's just people looking for reasons to hate. But if you're going to bring up PC Magazine, I'm going to let you do that because I think you have a good point there. And I know I think that set me off on a rant.
Yeah. I think we don't need to talk too much about PC Gamer because I think that is similar. That the one that you were just talking about is similar. Where I remember your comment where you were calling them out for calling Red a certain kind of, like, they described them in a strange way.
Kate Sith.
Sorry. Yeah.
They didn't know what he was. So they just made like this, again, like a paraphrasing, like this weird creature, Kate Sith type thing. But then also there's so many things they got wrong. Like they also talked about the battle functionality where they're saying once you build up the ATB bar, you can, press X or the right trigger, and then that will turn the game into a slow-mo where you can select something. Well, that's not true because you can press any of those at any time, even if your ATB bar is not full, and it will still put the game into the slow-mo sequence until you either exit out or, basically until you exit out. So there was a lot of inconsistencies there with how that was written from a boilerplate template from a previous review, clear as day. You could probably copy and paste that into Google and you'd find comparable phrasing.
That was a strange review because they got that out so fast. It was almost day of release or like just a couple of hours after.
Done by design to get a reaction.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Again, it's like there's no ethics in journalism as a whole anymore. But why do you want to taint the gaming pool, especially for should be real journalism in gaming, like real reviews, like back when you used to have like physical magazines for games. Like it should be legit. Like
you still go through that editing process. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
I remember that. Yeah, that got pretty heated for a lot of people. And I guess I was just disappointed in PC Gamer for getting that out so fast and not really focusing. Like the game was already out, so they were just rehashing old arguments and then also not bringing up anything that the PC version like brought to the table, like any of the specs or anything like that. So that was kind of a bummer there. But thank you very much for your insight there, Ash. I think this is a good spot to kind of to wrap it up, and just so that everyone's aware that we kind of welcome the discussion. So if you have anything to add or your own experiences to kind of talk about, we're happy to hear them. Just leave them in the comments below. But
I'd be curious to see if people how they perceive the gaming world and gaming community, if they. Because I will only notice the negativity if I go to certain parts of the internet. Otherwise, I'm playing mostly single player games, so don't really notice it and don't really care to go wandering. But I would be curious to see what other people's experiences have been. I do have one fun question for you before we wrap up.
Yeah.
What do you think will be the collector's item in Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3?
Remake Part 3, the collector's item. So what was the collector's item for the last two?
So I don't think it will zoom in for me, but
so Sephiroth was
he's
Rebirth.
Up there.
Yeah.
So Sephiroth for Rebirth, and then it was Cloud on the motorcycle. For Remake. I still have that in a box over there. Never opened it. It's still in the dispatch box.
Yeah.
So I don't even know if all the contents are there, but I still have that whole collector's first class edition sealed, never opened, with the figure in there.
Oh man,
so I was curious to see
We should crack
What?
that open for a video.
You know what?
Oh, collect.
If and when we get to say 10,000 subscribers,
Oh, okay.
or
Yeah.
maybe I should set a higher goal. I don't know.
You really don't want to open it.
I mean, I'm never going to sell it. That's the
Yeah.
thing. I'll never
Yeah.
ever sell it.
Yeah.
That's why I opened Sephiroth in the end, because I thought, hold up, I've
Yeah.
just bought this and I'm not going to sell it. I actually want it on display. So I opened it. But I know there's something so sentimental about
sealed
keeping it for that
things, yeah.
long now, you know?
Yeah.
But when we get to, we'll have to set a target. And then when we get there, I will be
You'll
prompted
consider
to open it.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I'll
That's
do
good.
it. I'll do it when
Okay.
we'll decide on a number, and then when that number's hard set, because 100,000 could be a long way, dude. It really could. So I'll go with 10,000. If we get to 10,000 subscribers, I will get to 10,000 subscribers, and I will open it live on stream, and just
right.
get away.
Yeah.
Get rid of the
You want to
packaging.
see Ash open up his collector's edition? Please subscribe. Yeah. But for the item, I reckon it will be a Buster Sword, probably, of some sort. I don't know if it'll be like the rusted Buster Sword impaled in the ground at like the end of Advent Children, but I feel like it has to also have a figure. So,
because do you think they would do? Because I was thinking earlier, would they do Cloud again? Because they did.
That's what I was just thinking when you said it was a motorcycle.
Cloud and someone? Do you think do you think it would be a duo type thing? Because they did that for Final Fantasy 16. It was Ifrit and the Phoenix. That shoe.
Yeah, it could be Nanaki, like in the like howling. I don't know. It's so hard, but I reckon it will be the Buster Sword.
I think because it's part 3, it's got to be very iconic.
Yeah.
And I think Nanaki, he's obviously a support role character.
Yeah.
I was thinking it could be Aerith or Aerith and someone, because Aerith is technically, as far as we know, she's no live in the game. So I was thinking it could be that.
Yeah.
But that's, I don't know, man. I was really thinking about what it could be, because I would definitely get the collector's edition 100%.
Yeah.
But
we'll open that one too. So.
Oh no, I will. I won't even hesitate to open that one. With Remake, I bought a normal copy of the game and I played that. And then, so actually what happened was I pre-ordered the First Class edition like well in advance. Didn't have a PlayStation 4. My partner who I was with at the time bought me a PlayStation 4 the year Remake came out, and my birthday was obviously months and months later. So I spent all that time waiting. So when she bought me that, and I remember she wrapped it in gift wrapping paper that was Sonic the Hedgehog. So I was really happy with that. But I went and bought a normal copy of the game, played it that way. And then I remember getting a PS5 when I was in the USA. That was for basically all of 2021. And PS5 was still hard to get at the time. I finally managed to get one. And I didn't really need to do anything with it. I just got it for the sake of getting it. And I was so happy that I managed to, literally within a minute of buying it on Amazon, it sold out like that. I had these alerts.
I think I had to get mine from the German Amazon.
Wow.
Managed to, and that's
impressive.
I think I actually secured 2. So if I knew you back then, I would have given you the other one. So.
I was following Matt Swider, who used to be on Tech Radar, and he had a Substack where he would go and research who was getting them. So that was really cool. But then I bought another copy of Final Fantasy for the PS5. So I actually have like 3 copies of 7 Remake, one still unopened and sealed, and I think my cousin has another one, and I still have one here for the PS5. But for the third part, I'm just going to buy the collector's edition, get it open, get it on. But I would love to know what this collectible is going to be, because
do you think it could be white
materia
based as well, or black materia based?
That's another thing, man. It could be materia based.
Oh man, could it be meteor? That'd be crazy.
See that, and I do love my collectibles, man. They make for a great backdrop. Will you get the collector?
I think I've really regretted just being digital, but moving from Japan to the UK, And to New Zealand, like I haven't had much space of my own. So now that we're if we decide to stay in the UK a bit longer as well, I think we'll be based here for a while. So I'm kind of getting into my collectibles as well. So I'll definitely get the Part 3 collector's edition, regardless of what it is. But yeah.
Would you try and buy the previous collectibles at some point in life? You would?
I think I'm going to try find them on a trip to Japan, see if there's anything there. Because I kind of want to have a like a disc presentation of all 3 parts as well, like just framed somewhere, which would be cool. So, yeah,
that does sound cool. There's I have a friend in Japan, by the way, who lives there, and he knows some stores where you can basically get like real collectible stuff and even games at really low prices. So I'll have to ask, unless you already know of these places, because you live there yourself, so you probably know.
I mean, I know a few, but like it's changed so much since I've been there, and the secondhand market there is insane. Like it's like I don't have to get it like pristine, but even if it's secondhand, it's usually pristine over there. So that's really bad. So yeah.
So how long are you out in Japan for?
About 3.5 weeks, like nearly.
Wow.
So yeah, this is a big holiday for the
year. Iconic anime or gaming landmarks on the itinerary?
So we're based in Ginza for the first couple of days, so I think it's a pretty good location for like venturing out. I'm gonna go to the Square Enix Garden, the one that Hamaguchi-san just talked about. They opened, so definitely gonna go there. I think that's in Shibuya or Shinjuku. And then obviously gonna go to Shibuya, the Shibuya Crossing, which features so many games. And that's just that big crossing next to the Hachiko, that dog who waited for his owner statue in Shibuya. So, and
what about the Pokemon Center?
Yeah, I was gonna just mention that. Yeah, I'm planning to hit 2 of the Pokemon centers in Tokyo anyway, and then just normal stuff. Kind of, my partner who lived with me in Japan, I didn't actually realize she didn't really do Tokyo that much. I lived there for 8 years, and not Tokyo itself, but Japan. So I managed to do a lot of Tokyo, but she hasn't. So we're gonna see what she wants to do. So yeah.
And what about food hotspots? Like you must love the Japanese food, right?
Oh yeah, I miss it so much. Not to say anything bad about the UK's take on it, but it just doesn't hit the same.
No, dude, I agree, because there's maybe 1-2 places at best where and again, it's not, it's not pure authentic Japanese, but they've done a good enough job. But I'll never tell those places because I don't want people populating them. I like to keep them. They're busy enough. That's what I'm going to say. It's like they're not starving for business. They're busy enough. I don't want them getting any busier, because when I do decide to eat there, I don't want it to be hard to get a table.
Yeah, if you ever go to Japan, don't be scared of the 3-star reviews for certain places, because that's like secret code for the locals that it's actually a good place. So the 5 stars isn't actually the best rating.
Will you just set it out on air now?
Oh, it's still recording? Oh, crap. Oh, no. Just cut this bit, yeah.
Are you a Wagyu beef fan?
Yeah. Yeah. Huge fan of the Wagyu, and like, I don't know if you've had yakiniku, the Korean barbecue style.
Oh, yeah.
It's really good. We've been to Kobe once before, so if we get a chance, we might just duck out there on our way to Hiroshima. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, dude, I hope to see some photos, man.
I'm not big on the socials, but my friends have told me to start an Instagram, so I'll send you the link, and I'll try to post something every day on my stuff, or just send it to you via X. So yeah.
Well, you can tell us about your adventures when you get back, especially if you go into these anime and gaming hotspots. Super curious for that, because I know, isn't there a theme park where they have like the Naruto village and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think there's like a hotel / theme park for Naruto, and then there's also the Jump Land or Jump like the Shonen Jump manga world, which has got like One Piece, Dragon Ball, and all that stuff. This is all stuff that happened after I left, so it'll be really interesting to see if I can get it. But I think the main thing is that I'm scared of this time is the over tourism. Like it's been so hard to get tickets for stuff because it's insane at the moment. My friends, the locals there, are just telling me that it's insane, and there's kind of a disgruntling it's kind of feeding into, not to get conspiracy theory or anything, but it kind of feeds.
Go ahead.
feeds
good
into like the
conspiracy.
xenophobia of maybe the locals there. So, which is a bit of a
I don't
shame.
blame them though,
But yeah,
because I know a lot of the Western streamers have ruined it.
yeah,
And I've seen it, and it's the behavior is so again distasteful. It's like you look at it and you like why, and again like these people are sociopaths, and some of them have even admitted to being of that nature, but they want to go over there and behave in a way for what getting donations or click revenue, whatever it may be.
yeah,
I mean, you could do that anywhere, but you choose to in Japan because they're under the misconception that they can get away with it in Japan, that it's a soft touch. But a lot of these streamers are getting punished for it now, and I'm glad, because I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's right. The one thing I like about Japan is, I'm not going to say it's perfect, because I know there's obviously concerns with their work culture and stuff, but in terms of their general heritage and culture, they work hard and work within the laws to preserve that,
yeah.
which I think it's we admire countries like that for that very thing. So we should be doing our best to not only respect it, but also uphold it as well, so it can stand the test of time and continue on for generations to come.
I think,
so,
yeah,
I
the thing that's impressive there is that it is part, their culture is so much part of every individual's, they can take pride in it, and that they value it to the point where it's part of their identity, which is really cool. So
I'm looking forward to your trip, man. I hope you have a great time.
yeah, thank you.
I keep cancelling my plans for Japan over the past 2 years, but I've even put a pencil in for October this year, and who knows if I'll even get around to doing it.
Oh man, yeah.
But
I reckon
we'll see.
You got to go soon before this thing hits like it's massive. Like, because I think they're also arguing with the government, who keeps pushing tourism. Because like last year they did 30 million, but they're pushing. They're saying they want 60 million visitors this time, which is causing people to get angry. So
Wow.
it's also turning political, which it's just ruins everything. So
it does. I just thought it'd be cool to maybe be in Shibuya around Halloween.
That is a crazy
stuff.
time. Halloween is a different thing in their culture. So yeah.
I had friends in the US. Obviously, I'm definitely out of condition, but I'm a fair bit bigger when I train, and I'm very lean when I train. And they were challenging me to train so I could cosplay as Yuji and Sukuna.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So my idea behind it originally was, if I can go as two characters over the weekend by being the same character, because Sukuna and Yuji look the same when he's living within it. Just maybe put a bit of face paint and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, one friend was like, well, if you do Sukuna, you've just got to go shirtless or with the robe. And I was like, God damn it, man. That means I have to like up my training.
Hey, it'll be worth it. It'll be worth it.
For the challenge, maybe, yeah. It's a lot of work, man. These cosplays aren't easy. I've never done one before. Never ever. But I've seen my friend goes to a lot of the cons in the USA, and he's shown me some amazing cosplays that people do. Like one person even built their own, like, I don't know if they were inside it or if they just built it themselves, that material. But Gundam Wing, they built their own character from there. Yeah, and I think it was remote control, but it was insane.
Yeah.
So I'm always impressed by the lengths that people go in. And my friend himself, he tends to go as a mix of Hisoka from Hunter x Hunter, and he also... Are you up to date with Jujutsu Kaisen, or do you not watch it? I don't want to give any spoilers.
I read that. I've finished it with the manga, so yeah, I'm up to...
Okay, so he cosplays as Kenjaku really well.
Yeah.
He's got the right aesthetics for that, so he does a good job with that. So yeah, it's fun and it's a bit inspiring and motivating, but it's a lot of bloody work, man.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
All right. Well,
but yeah, dude, if you capture any good stuff in Japan, yeah, let's see. Maybe we can share it with the folks on the channel as well. But
yeah, 100%.
Again, your privacy is your privacy. So
maybe if we get to 10,000 at once, it's not. No. I'll update you guys when I get back. But it should be a good trip. So yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. I think that's all we got time for. So yeah, just yeah, let us know what you guys think of what we've said today, and yeah, we encourage healthy discussion. Yeah, in the comments. Yeah, yeah, so, yeah, yeah, yeah,
You get in there and
yeah,
you let us have it.
yeah. Just do it in the comments. Don't add us, but yeah, or add us, doesn't matter. But yeah, but thanks for your time, and we'll see you guys again
Thank you for
soon
yours.
for another discussion. So all
Will
the
do.
best. Bye.